Students, today let us continue the same lesson, Lesson 2, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. In my last class, I had given you a short summary of the lesson. Once again, let us recall to our mind what we heard yesterday. This chapter has been taken from Nelson Mandela's book of the same name, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. It provides us a glimpse of the early life of Nelson Mandela, his education, 27 years in prison, and the pains he had suffered in his young age. The chapter recounts his fight for the freedom of his own people who were tortured by whites. In this chapter, Mandela gives two contradictory pictures of his own country, one in which the blacks were tortured and suffered quietly, and second, the blacks will be free to live the life of their own. The main characters here are Nelson Mandela, the first black president of South Africa who fought for the equal rights of the blacks. He suffered a lot of pain for freedom. Next character is Janani. She is the daughter of Nelson Mandela who accompanied him in his inauguration day. She was very much close to him. Third character is Thabo Mbeki, first deputy president of South Africa who was very close to Mandela. The last character is Mr. de Klerk, second deputy president of South Africa. Let's start reading. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. Here, the meaning of besieged by is to be surrounded by. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. The explanation to this two paragraph is, it was 10th May, the day of oath, with a bright and shiny sun. Nelson Mandela was supposed to take oath as the first black president of South Africa. A large number of leaders, all from around the world, had gathered there to be the witness of the swearing-in ceremony of Nelson Mandela as the first black president. The inauguration ceremony took place in a big open building in Pretoria, where the first democratic non-racial government was to be installed. Let's carry on reading. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Janani. On the podium, Mr. de Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then, Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. Let's continue reading. Then, Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests and to the watching world, I said, today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We, who were outlaws not so long ago, have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world in our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. Never, never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. Now let's look to the meanings here. Confer means give. Next, we who were outlaws, meaning because of its policy of apartheid, many countries had earlier broken off diplomatic relations with South Africa. Emancipation meaning freedom from restriction. Deprivation means state of not having one's rightful benefits. Discrimination means being treated differently or unfavorably. Now, let me explain to you these paragraphs that you have just heard right from the beginning. It was 10th May, the day of oath, with a bright and shiny sun. Nelson Mandela was supposed to take oath as the first black president of South Africa. A large number of leaders, all from around the world, had gathered there to be the witness of the swearing-in ceremony of Nelson Mandela as the first black president. The inauguration ceremony took place in a big open building in Pretoria, where the first democratic non-racial government was to be installed. On that day, Nelson Mandela was accompanied by his daughter Janani. Mr. T was the first person who took oath as second deputy president, followed by Mr. Thabo Mbeki, who swore as the first deputy president of South Africa. Nelson Mandela swore as the first black president of South Africa. He pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote himself to the well-being of the people. He also pledged to make the nation free from poverty, deprivation, suffering, and all sort of discrimination. Now, try to answer these questions. Number 1, where did the ceremonies take place? Question number 2, can you say how 10th May is an autumn day in South Africa? Question 3, what does Mandela mean by an extraordinary human disaster? Question 4. What does Mandela thank the international leaders for? Question 5. What ideals does he set out for the future of South Africa?